when it comes to your baby getting stuck during labor because your pelvis is too small, according to your doctor.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
When they told you VBACs are too risky and that once a C-section, always a C-section.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Hey y'all, hey. This video is for my C-section mamas. Sis, I'm about to expose some real truths that your provider may not want you to know. So I'm gonna need for you to grab your tea, pull up your seat, because I'm about to go in. This finna be a long one. And don't forget to like and subscribe so that we can reach more women like us. The women who have been misled, dismissed, or just simply lied to. We deserve better. Let's change that together. So this mama, she needs some advice. She says, did anyone have an emergency C-section because their baby got stuck and went to have VBACs? She says, I had a C-section with my first child, but he got stuck and couldn't make it through. That wasn't the only reason, but the main reason. For my second, I'm automatically going for a C-section because it seems like common sense. Okay. If the first didn't fit, would the second? Valid question. Is trying for a VBAC worth the risk of another emergency C-section? Has anyone had successful VBACs when their first one got stuck? Great line of questions, sis. I really appreciate you, asking these questions because they're important. And it's when we begin to ask questions that we can then get educated. And so I'm finna learn y'all one today. So let me ask y'all, has anyone ever watched those like National Geographic films where, those creeps, I'm calling them creeps because if you're trying to sneak up on an animal to see them giving birth, that's creepy. But I digress. You ever watch those videos and during the video, you may see like a rhino or a zebra and they're clearly about to have that baby, but they run off or it's just not happening. Have you ever seen a lioness give birth in the spotlight? I don't think I have. But do you know why? Let's talk about it. Do you know why? It's because it's hard to be in tune when someone around you is doing something strange, okay? Or if it's just not in alignment with how things are naturally supposed to go. So it begs to question, how are we expected to birth under surveillance, under fluorescent lights, and someone yelling and just making all this ruckus? Oh, I gotta check to see how dilated you are. Oh, hold still, dear, only take a step. It won't hurt that much. And so if the animals won't do it, how are we expected to? Like, let's give a little talk about how bodies birth way better than any protocol that's been written. Let's talk about it. When I think of how our bodies are designed, it makes me think of a verse in the Quran, in the, our holy book, where Allah says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. Allah says, indeed, we created mankind in the best of stature. Hello. And so, sis, that includes you, okay? That includes your womb. It was designed to birth. So don't be letting them treat you like you defective. Don't do that because the creator says so himself. I did my thing and won't he do it all the time? I want to start off by mentioning a few quotes. There's a doctor I'm really fond of. Her name is Sarah Buckley. And she's really supportive of physiological birth. And so I like to reference her because some people think that doctors are against birth. And I don't believe that doctors are against birth. I just think that they believe in their line of study in, biology and not too much physiology, okay? And that's okay. It's just a different school of thought. And so you have to know what side of the fence you land, okay? But Sarah Buckley, she pointed out 3 things that need to be in place for the safest and best birth outcome, okay? And so I want to use that and then compare it to what actually happens, all right? It's a little education here. She said a mom must be in a quiet place, right? So it has to be quiet. The mom must be stress-free. So we mean stress-free like in her birth realm, not worrying about what's happening back home. That we're talking about in the birth space, okay? And a mom must be in a familiar place in which the mother is unobserved. So the question is, well, what does all of this mean? Okay, so Dr. Buckley, she emphasizes that the body's natural hormonal orchestration, right? That is our all natural, right? Not the fake stuff they be pumping into us, not that. We talking oxytocin, we talking endorphins, we're talking adrenaline and prolactin, okay? All of these need to be protected and unhindered. And this lovely hormonal cocktail, they're not just floating around for the fun of or the heck of it. No, they each have a place. And when they are allowed to flow properly, there's some nice things that go on here. It supports a smooth labor. It helps reduce pain. Yes, we could talk about that probably in another video. It also strengthens that maternal instinct. And we need that because it helps foster not just the immediate bonding after birth, but also breastfeeding, okay? So if our body is naturally wired, like the doctor mentioned, what do you think that means if we opt for these things, for additional things to be added during our birth? Do you think that supports it or hinders it? These are just thought-provoking questions. And so I believe, and it's just my perspective, that when you don't mess with the masterpiece, it can perform chef's kiss, okay? Now, I'm not a medical professional and I don't claim to be. I'm just giving some things to think about, okay? Now, let's talk about why women labor slow down, all right? Let's say when someone enters the room, or better yet, when they go to a strange facility, okay? No, I'm not out here telling people, don't go to that hospital, sis, because where you go, that's your choice, okay? You know, Najma Shifab minds the business that pay her. I'm only offering different perspectives as to why these things can happen, okay? Listen, our bodies are just not meant to birth on cue. That is unnatural. It births in quiet because where you're in the space of peace and privacy, we call this sakina. We call that divine calm, okay? That descends when we're in that space, you know? So when I think of that privacy and that stillness, right? I think of a verse in the Quran where Allah tells us, هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم. Allah basically tells us He is the one who sends down serenity into the hearts of the believers. And so that serenity is what opens the woman's body, okay? Is what gets us into that zen. So my advice, try to dim those lights, close that door, and tell everyone to be quiet. And if there's anyone's energy that's not giving, oh, they gotta go. They gotta go. As Martin would say, get the step in, okay? Your baby needs your body, not performance. So the second that a mother feels watched, judged, unsupported, shamed, unsafe, her neocortex lights up and it shuts down that primitive birthing part of her brain. That's science, y'all. That is science, okay? So safe births require not just a safe womb, but a safe room. Y'all feel me? So then, of course, when labor begins to slow down and stall, you're looked at like you the problem, right? They be looking at you, and you be looking at them, and they be listen. But here's a question. What if it's their interruptions that actually pause the process? What if their interruptions is exactly what pauses the process? Think about it. I think of a verse where Allah says, Wallahu ma'as sabirin, that Allah are with those who are patient. And so I look at it like So this particular verse, I look at it that it's not just about prayer and hardship, it's for birth too. Because when you look at where it begins to fall apart is due to lack of that sabr, right? That lack of that patience. Because sometimes it's not necessarily your body failing, it's the system that's refusing to wait. If you're on someone else's timeline or their clock and they're not waiting, what's the real problem here, right? And so then it starts with, oh, let's just break your water, okay? Because your water bags didn't break on its own, let's break it, let's speed things along, right? And then after that, it's, oh, you're not progressing. Oh, someone's a little stubborn. Somebody don't want to get out. Well, I guess if little baby feel like it's not his time or her time, then I guess she would want to wait, right? But it's not a marathon. So what are we rushing here? Okay. And then next thing you know, you being wheeled into surgery when you're 6 centimeters, or in my case, I was fully dilated, a whole 10, right? And so has this happened to anyone? Share, if you can, share your story below. I want to know how many of you ladies have had this experience, this cascade, all right? Because Dr. Buckley calls it the cascade of intervention. And honey, I called it birth hijacking. Because once the interferences lead to another, it just be having you feel crazy and have you looking up there saying like, did I ever have a choice? Like, I never had a say. And you just reliving everything and just wishing like, well, what's happening? Why didn't I know? And so this is why I like to try to inform moms, because when a birth is overmanaged, it often ends in trauma, not triumph. And that's not what we want. I don't want that for anybody. Y'all, talking about this just jogged a memory of mine. I remember in my first birth, right? I had coach pushing. Well, first of all, I was induced at 37 weeks. And I remember crying in the shower because I did not want to go. I did not want to go. But I wound up going, right? And I said, I'm going to muster through this because I want to have control. I don't want to not be able to feel. I don't want to, be beside myself or feel like I don't have a handle on things. And so even with being induced and all the ways I was induced, I'll leave that story for another time. A nurse, when they said, oh, you're finally dilated enough, let's move you over to labor delivery. And a nurse said to me, oh, you don't want an epidural? Why not? And I'm like, well, I'm fine. And she's like, honey, you don't get a trophy for this. In my 30 years, someone in your case, 30 years I've been here, I think it's best that you go ahead and get the epidural because, if anything goes south, you're going to miss the birth of your baby. We're going to have to put you completely under. And I'm like, well, dang, wow. And so, well, what do I know, right? All I know is I just wanted some control. I wanted to be able to move and get up, and doing those things helped me. But the moment I'm all rigged up now, only half my body took, right? And so then when it was time to push, I swear, coach pushing is like the cheerleader nobody asked for. Nobody wants her here, but yes, she's here, right? Anyway, so I'm told to wait, push. No, you're not doing it. Are you even pushing? You're not doing it. First of all, I feel like I'm running a touchdown or something. And the crazy part, being told that I wasn't pushing right, am I pushing at all? Push harder. I can't feel nothing. I can't feel anything. And what am I pushing? First baby, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, come on. And so later on, and I didn't really learn this till my second birth, I realized that, I guess I came to an understanding that my womb ain't no stadium. We're not playing ball here. And if physiology were allowed to be used, and the body was, allowed to do what it was designed to do, it would be different outcomes, okay? Because holding your breath, pushing on command, counting to 10 like it's gym class, and you know what? That counting to 10, that might be why I got an aversion to gyms today. I don't know. But it's giving group projects. It's not giving, I'm giving life. There's another verse where Allah mentions, وَأَنَّهُ هُوَ أَمَاتَ وَأَحْيَا. Allah says, I'm the one that give life, baby. Okay? And so all of that, on someone else's stopwatch or someone else's timer, We on the creator's timeline. Okay, he put this together for me. So y'all finna wait. Okay? Let that cook for a bit. Coach pushing is not only outdated, it's just downright disrespectful to your body's intelligence. You know, your uterus doesn't need a timeline. How many of you have heard of the ejection reflex? Yes, it's a real thing. It's involuntary. It's meant to be wild and sacred and intuitive, not perform. Wait, anybody watch Martin growing up? And there was a woman, she went into labor when she was in Martin's apartment, right? And so I might insert the clip here. But when she went to push that baby, the baby flew across across the room. And I forget who, I think it was Martin, who caught the baby like a football. And he was like, now look how chaotic this screen is. Unfortunately, a lot of births be like this. Look, on her back, screaming like a mad woman. And look at that. Where the umbilical cord at, y'all? And so, although that's a bit of an exaggeration, but let my husband tell it, that's true. Because with my second baby, I remember just, and this was, of course, my second baby after cesarean. I had her at home. And I remember getting these sensations that I just could not control. Like, I couldn't control these sensations. And it felt like, I remember telling my husband, something's happening. It felt like something was like my body was pushing. And I'm like, you want to catch this baby. Listen, I kid you not. It felt like my vagina was throwing up. I felt like my vagina was throwing up. And so I got on all fours because that's what felt most comfortable, right? And I'm like, you have to catch this baby because I don't know what's happening right now, okay? My body's doing something and I'm not doing it. And she literally flew out. And he claims he caught her like a football. I didn't see because it was behind me. She came flying out. But what I'm getting at is this. Pushing is a reflex. It's not a race. Have anybody been told that your pelvis was too small? Because I remember being told that during my first birth. And I was even told that I would never be able to birth naturally. I actually wonder what the look on that doctor's today face would say if I saw him and I said, hey, I had 3 babies at home out of this too small, pelvics that y'all told me I had. But anyway, and then it makes you wonder, was it their patience that was actually small? And so I'm not going to say this is for all women, this not having a small pill. I'm not going to say all women fit into a bubble because this is what they do. I'm not doing that. I'm just educating based off of my observations, right, and experience. So from my own births and births that I've attended, that babies rarely get stuck, And so if a mom is able to birth the way that's instinctive to her, I strongly believe that your baby too big just screams C-section industry, And so if a woman ever asked me that, I would say, nah, beloved, I don't believe that. I believe that your birth was interrupted. You weren't privy to movement. Your rhythm was interrupted. And all of those things are needed for your baby to guide down because your baby knows what to do. You're working with your baby. And so if you disrupt the ways in which your baby needs, then, I don't think I need to say. But also those bright lights, those vaginal checks, those instilling fear, all those things usually is what gets the baby stuck. Because again, how can we birth when we're so tense, right? And so what if it wasn't the baby, but it was the system that got in the way? And if you ever doubt your ability, remember, and we have a verse in our book, in the Quran, where Allah says, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And whoever places their trust in Allah, He will suffice for them. And so if you're a faith-based person or person that believes in the Creator, if you place your trust in Him, everything's going to work out. And so this doesn't pair well with doctors a lot of the times. And I'm not going to say all, with some, providers. It doesn't. And some people it may not pair with, but this is through my lens. This is also through my lens of teaching and a lot of the women's that I coach, okay? And so this is my methodology. But can we also address the success rates when it comes to VBACs? I actually like to use the statistics from the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. All right, so this is called ACOG because it's a mouthful, so we're going to say ACOG, okay? So they let it be known that the risk of uterine rupture after cesarean, and this is what the providers speak on because this is what they base it off of. Granted, they don't base it strictly off of ACOG, they also base it off of their hospital, rubrics as well. Because if they simply based it strictly off of ACOG, it would be less than 1%, meaning less than 1% of a uterine rupture. That means over a 99% chance, right? However, ACOG mentioned if it happens spontaneously, meaning at random. This does not cover when it's induction, okay? So they also speak on the risk of rupture being based on several factors like augmented, right? The use of misoprostol, high dose, the synthetic oxytocin. And so again, I'm just here to inform of what may happen or what you may not be aware of, to weigh all of these things. So they may say, oh, you can try for a VBAC if, you opt for induction, but their own system tells them what it leads to if induction is included. So you have to the research is out there, y'all. The research is out there. And so it's just something for you to think about, okay? Also know you are allowed to learn the anatomy to understand how your body functions, because I think when you understand how your body functions, it allows you to make better informed decisions. And you're not leaving it to someone that's like, oh, they know it better. Yeah, they learned a body, but do they know you? How long have they known you? And so this is not to discredit what they may or may not know, but this will allow you to weigh into you and your decisions. You can't do that if you don't know anything. All right. Now, the last point I want to speak on is about fear. All right. Now, before I go there, tell me in the comments, y'all, if y'all want me to cover a video on fear, because I can go in. I can't, if I talk freely and fully on fear, oh, we're going to be here for another whole half hour, okay? So if you want to hear more about fear of childbirth or how to overcome trauma from birth, comment below, and I got you, sis. I got you, boo-boo. I got you. Have y'all heard of tocophobia? Child, they got names for every phobia that's out here, okay? And so this phobia is a pathological fear of pregnancy and birth. And it also comes with physical, not only psychological, but also a physical like symptoms, nightmares, child, panic attacks, crying, nausea, even thoughts of being unalive, okay? And see, the thing is, fear is not just in our heads, it's in our bodies. And to help it, you need oxytocin and not that stuff they put in the bag. We talk about that real body made, that hot and ready made oxytocin, okay? And this is how you combat it. And this is because too, it's not just in your mind. It affects the nervous system. It affects the hormones and the birthing ability. And a body can't birth in survival mode, right? Because that fear, it triggers that fight or flight response, that something's wrong, something's wrong. And so we're not saying that you shouldn't feel fear, because fear is a natural part of us. It's our one of our core emotions. However, it's what we do with it and what we believe about it. And so this is a lot of what I teach. So again, I could go on and on because this is so complex and I really love to educate on it, but I'll say that for a future video. I just want to say, sis, I see you. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are not alone. Fear doesn't make you less of a mother. It doesn't make you less of a woman. It makes you human. And far too many women suffer in silence because of fear of being judged or mistaken for maternal weakness or just weak in general. And so we tend to isolate ourselves, and that doesn't do us, it doesn't serve us. So if you're out here, sis, and this video found you and it helped answer your questions, hopefully you do see it and it answers your questions. And any other woman that's out there, if you found this helpful, please let me know. Like, subscribe, and share with a woman that you think it may help. And I'll see y'all next time.